I'm Mike O'Neill, and in this video I'm going to show you how I built a built-in bookshelf to take up this really odd, small space in between my closet and my window. This is a smaller bedroom in our house, and the next occupant is probably going to be a little kid, so I thought it would be fun to create a little secret panel where you can store things. I'm storing some of my camera gear, and I looked at a number of different plans, and I want something that's got some heft that looks like it's pretty substantial. So I took one that has 2 pieces of plywood, one on either side, and then is separated by these wood frames to give it extra strength and to give it heft. The internal frame is just a 2x4 that I've cut apart. Take a look at this side, it's the back edge. This piece, the internal piece of the bookshelf, doesn't go quite as deep as this piece. This will allow me to slide in a backing piece, be able to nail it onto this, and still get into here. The idea is that I'll attach these supports to the wall, and then these side pieces will simply slide on. The screws aren't entirely necessary. If I had more clamps, the glue should be enough. But since I only have a couple of clamps and I want to do multiple pieces at once, the screws can't hurt. Now we'll flip it and do the other side. However, the second support needs to leave space so that I can slide the support on the walls right into it. So I line this one up on the edge. You can see that this piece is slightly warped. That's okay. Now it's time to put on the interior piece. I'm running low on wood glue, so this time I'm going to use a lot more screws to help hold it tight. Even though this will be the interior of my bookcase, it's really important that the countersink be deep enough so that I can fill it up with joint compound and sand it smooth, make it look like it's not there at all. Now I'm going to take some spackle, I'm going to overfill those holes. I can sand them down later. The reason I'm overfilling is that these shrink as they dry. This is the spot. I want the bookshelf to go nice and tight up against this door casing. And that means I need to trim out these little edges so that I can get the measurement right. I'm going to need to relocate this cable jack right here because my right wall of my bookshelf is right on top of it. My last obstacle is right here. This sticks out just a fraction from here, so to get them tight and flush, I'm gonna have to trim this edge as well. I want the bookshelf to go nice and tight up against this door casing and with this wall. Because of that, I'm really nervous about using a tape measure. What I wanna do is get my, my top and my bottom measured in this space exactly so that I don't make some 1/4 of an inch mistake and end up with a big gap here. This is where it's gonna fit. So this is gonna go in on the insides. All right, I made my cut, and now let's see how it fits. That's a nice tight fit. I have my table saw all set up to cut the top and the bottom of my bookshelf. I'm just gonna take the opportunity, I shrunk this by 1/8 of an inch, and I'm gonna take the opportunity to cut the shelves. This is my first time constructing furniture. I did some research on what kind of joins I would want to use so that the screws aren't visible. The answer I came up with was using a pocket joining system. I ended up purchasing this one from Craig's. It's got a little clamp that I can put my wood in, and that will help me join the pieces of my bookshelf together. I also found this great video from Woodworking for Mere Mortals that helped introduce me and help me understand how the system worked and why it's a good idea to use pocket joins for these types of joins. You can check out that video right here. The first thing I need to do is set the width of my wood, of my board, by moving this up and down. You can't see it on this side, but on this side there's a little bit of measurement saying 5/8 of an inch or what have you. So my wood is 5/8 of an inch thick, and I just get this screwed into place. The next step is this drill bit. As you can see, the drill bit it's thicker at the base than it is at the top, so it'll give something for the screw to hold on to. The next step is to get the collar set around the drill bit so I don't drill in too deeply. What I do is I make sure that this is just a little bit higher, so I'm not drilling a hole all the way through my one piece of wood, and then I tighten the little guard right there. So now there's no way that it'll drill down to the bottom. It's gonna leave me about 1/4 of an inch of wood. Then I get my wood firmly and squarely in the clamp, tighten that up, and then I just drill on through. End result, I've got these 2 nice little pocket holes. I'm gonna repeat the rest of the way around this piece. I also got this right angle clamp from Craig. The idea is that this will hold the 2 pieces of wood together while I screw the screws in through the pocket joint. It's actually really tough to clamp on the wood. It says here that it auto adjusts. Get it all lined up, and then you're supposed to clamp really hard, but I've never been able to get it to work. I can't get this clamp to hold on its own, so I'm just gonna try to screw the screws in with one hand while holding this with my other. I drilled a little too far and too deep, and you can see it buckled things right there. I want adjustable shelves for my built-in bookshelf. There was a lot of advice on the internet about taking a piece of pegboard so you'd get evenly spaced holes for the little pegs to hold up the shelves. I was really nervous about this, about getting things slightly level, whether it was just 1 peg or 3 or 4. So I bought this jig from Craig. The way that it works, first I put this little collar on the drill bit so it doesn't go too deep. Drill a hole through here, I run the drill through the hole, and it stops when it's deep enough. You can see right here, it doesn't go very deep. There's also this guide which makes sure that they'll all be the same distance from the edge of the board. The key piece is this little peg. You slide this through one of the holes so that when you start the next set of peg holes, it'll be in the right spot. I made the mistake of not experimenting with this on a piece of scrap wood. I learned pretty quickly you have to be careful with how you drill in. If you just let the weight of the drill carry it down, just like this, you'll get a nice, smooth, clean hole. If you force it, you'll get splintering on the face of the plywood. Because there are 2 different sizes on either end of the peg, you have to make sure that you're using the right one, the one that's gonna match the size of your hole. The drill bit that I got works with this end, not with this end. Of course, I didn't realize that, and so I got some of the holes wrong, and my fears came true, that the holes weren't lined up correctly. I verified this using a square I don't know if you can see it from the camera, we'll see, but you see this hole isn't lined up with this hole. It's just a little bit off. I decided that maybe I could repair these, refill them, by taking 1/4-inch dowels, sticking in some glue, stuffing it in, and then once this dries, cutting off the rest of the dowel, sanding it smooth, and then recutting the holes. Having that wood glued in should let me cut new holes, and hopefully undo the mess that I made. Once I paint this, you won't even be able to tell that I filled up these little holes. I found that no matter how careful I was with the Kreg jig, the peg holes would get slightly out of alignment. Now, 1 or 2 peg holes that were slightly off is not really a big deal. You're not going to notice it in the finished product. But over the full height of the bookshelf, those little differences would compound. So I ended up doing this. For the second side of holes, every single one, I would check to see if they were level, give or take. If I ended up getting perfectly level, both in terms of horizontally and front to back, then I would do 2 or 3 in a row and see where things ended up. The slightly narrower end was the key. Anytime that I was off, I would use this end of the peg and then either push up or pull down so I could get small changes in the height of each peg hole. I suspect part of my challenges with the jig were just a matter of experience. On the right-hand side, what I did here at the top was much later on than what I did at the bottom, where I was having a ton of problems. As I'm moving up to the top of the left side, things are going much more smoothly. I knew going in that most tall bookshelves have at least one fixed shelf to add stability. I didn't think this was necessary, as I was going to be bolting this bookshelf to the wall. Thing is, I needed to carry the bookshelf up 2 flights of stairs, and every time I moved it, it wobbled a little bit, and I was worried it was going to crack and fall apart on me. I'd only cut 4 shelves to begin with, and that's not a lot for a 7-foot high bookshelf. So I decided to cut 2 more shelves out of plywood and make those be permanent, fixed shelves. I did the same thing for the top and the bottom. I created some pocket holes, screwed them in just like here, and that was it. Even with 2 fixed shelves, I'm a little bit worried about carrying this up the stairs, so I created some extra supports. These supports will also give me something that I can drill into the stud that'll be behind this bookshelf. I removed the carpet underneath, so I'd have a nice, stable floor on which to put my foundation. Turns out my foundation is just maybe 1/4 of an inch too small, since the baseboard doesn't just pop in here nice and smoothly. I made some marks at the top of the bookshelf where those 2 pieces of wood will slot in. And I'm going to try to draw the line down to the bottom so I make sure that I get it at the right depth. The next step is to sink these spots for the screws in these supports. I want the screw to be able to slide halfway through. I used a powered jigsaw to cut out this little backing part so I can put the box back in, make room for the outlets. And what happened is that those pins came loose up along here. Anyway, I am going to need to take this thing back off the wall. Probably want to use some nails to get this attached. Remember this wall outlet for the cable? I moved the cable jack up here, but now I need to close up this hole. So before I put any molding on the bookshelf here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue the wainscoting. You can see it over here on one side of the bedroom. I ended up with this small gap here, and while I can live with it, I don't really like it. So I'm just taking a piece of very small quarter round. I'm gonna pin that in to cover up that seam. I'm doing this one step slightly out of order. When I got the bookshelf attached to the wall, the nails from my nail gun were too long and they would have burst through the support and out this side of the bookshelf. That's okay on that side, because that's just going into the wall, but it's not okay over here. So now that I've got some shorter nails, I'm just gonna do that one last piece. I don't know if you can see this, but this clearly isn't level. It's just a little bit off. So I'm gonna need to put a shim back here to keep this at a 90-degree angle. I'm also just gonna keep shaving off until I get a clean edge right here. Just a little bit more. Still need a touch more. And that fits in just perfectly. I want to have a neat outside corner. So I'm taking this little piece, which has just got a couple of cuts, really small, and it's just going to go right in here. Because this is such a small piece, I'm going to use the pin nailer and a little bit of glue. Not quite. This is a real pain in the butt, having to go and do these shaves off, and I'll show you on this way how much of a pain in the butt it is for me. But it's really the best way to get a good cut and a good fit on the molding. Still need to do a little bit. Definitely getting my exercise. Just about, I think one more blade's width off. Just a little bit more. Just one more cut and I'm done. All right, there we go. It's not gonna be the prettiest thing having these seams on here, but I think it'll be a fun thing for a kid's bedroom, to have a little secret hiding place. Now, I don't want this just to be loose. I want this to hold in there with a little bit of force. I got these little neodymium cabinet latch magnets, and I'm just gonna need to countersink them. There are two sizes, you can see one's thick, one's thin. The thick one, I'm gonna put into the wood, and the thin one, I'll embed into the back of the molding. And all I'm gonna do is use this drill bit to sink a little spot for it to live. Those magnets aren't holding things in quite as tightly as I would like. Just too bad. Well, that's basically it. Now all I need to do is caulk, paint, and I'm all done.